Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Michelle Dunnick, the Director of Events and Investor Relations at United Way of Southeast Louisiana. United Way of Southeast Louisiana, together with the Louisiana Hospitality Foundation and Intertree Corporation, are proud to support Phase 2 of the Hospitality Cares Pandemic Relief Program, which provides legal support and counseling services in partnership with Southeast Louisiana Legal Services and the Loyola Center for Counseling and Education. Thank you for joining us, and I will turn it over to our staff attorney, Constance and Marie at Southeast Louisiana Legal Services.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here again today. If you've joined videos in the past, you probably know Marie and I. We're staff attorneys with Southeast Louisiana Legal Services. We work in the Employment and Benefits Unit. Specifically, we deal with COVID-related cases and unemployment benefits. We're here today to talk to you about the third stimulus package and what it means to you. So I guess I'll kick it off and share my screen. We're going to go through a PowerPoint today, and then I'll turn it over to Marie. And we're going to save all questions for the end, and we're going to give you the opportunity to ask those questions if you want to throw them up in the chat at the end. Let's see, share screen, PowerPoint. Share. There we go. So signed into law was the American Rescue Plan Act. It's the third stimulus package to us all. It's a $1.9 trillion package. If you're interested in learning more about it outside of today's discussion, I've attached a link at the bottom, and this administration has built an entire website to help people navigate what it means to you and how it can help you, and to just better understand the plan in general, and don't feel like you have to scramble to write these links down as we go through them. This video is being recorded and we are going to share it. So we'll go right into it. I'm going to start off with what we're talking about today. I'm going to start off with the stimulus checks, also referred to as the $1,400 check. And then Marie's going to go into expanded and extended unemployment benefits. And then I'm going to go into reporting your unemployment benefits on your tax return, because right now we're in the middle of tax season. There's a lot of tax related questions with your 1099-G. And then Marie and I are going to flip flop on common tax questions and some of the pre-submitted questions. And then we'll turn the floor over to any questions that we can answer to you. And we'll also provide you some legal aid service information if you want to reach out to our COVID hotline. Or if you, I think I also have a legal answer. So if you have a quick legal answer and you don't need an attorney, you just need an answer and it's something we can't answer for you today, it's a good place to be directed to. So the $1,400 check, it's a stimulus check, it's non-taxable, you don't have to report it on your taxes. It's a cash payment to qualifying Americans. We're going to talk about those qualifications in the slides to come. And it comes by a direct deposit check or a debit card, right? The money can be used however you want. And if you're overpaid, the IRS is already committed to the fact that they're not going, unless there's some fraud involved, they're not going to ask you to repay that money, right? And I'll explain that in detail as we go. So there's 280 million people eligible for the check, and that starts with income eligibility. So for persons filing single, the cap is $75,000 to receive $1,400, and then it skims down to $80,000, and you'll get some variant of $1,400 in that gap. And then after $80,000, you would not receive a check. And then it does the same thing with couples married and filing jointly, and it's $150,000, and then it caps at $160,000, and then you have that little gap in between, right? So it's interesting on how they're going to determine your economic eligibility, right? Because we're in the middle of tax season, and they may look at 1 or 2 different years, because you're getting a payment for the year 2021, right? But if you haven't filed your 2020 taxes, they will look to 2019. And if you have filed your 2020 taxes, they will look to 2020 if you filed them when the stimulus was put in, right, when it was signed. So for some of us who made less in 2020, being laid off due to COVID, it was beneficial for us to file our taxes early and then qualify. But there are many who are waiting to file, considering the tax deadline has been moved. I've attached the deadline there. It's May 17th, 2021. they're going to look to your 2019 tax returns, right? So some common questions are, what if the IRS goes off my 2019 income, but I wouldn't have qualified if I filed earlier with my higher income? And like I said at the beginning, that's okay. The IRS has ensured that if that is the situation, once you file in 2020, you wouldn't have been eligible ideally. They're not going to come ask for that $1,400 back, or the $1,400 that was paid to your dependents, et cetera. So what about those who get less money now based off their either 2019 or 2020 tax return, but have less earnings in 2021? Because this is a stimulus payment you're receiving in 2021. Well, this time next year, when you're filing, there will be a way to show, say you get laid off in 2021, God forbid, there will be a way to show that you would have been eligible for part of the check or the entire check if you're ineligible, and you can get it then, which is what we've talked about in the past. When people didn't get the first and second check, you'll get a rebate recovery credit is what it's referred to. And but that would be, you would have to come back for that money this time next year when you're filing. So what's different about the stimulus check outside of that's separate from the $1,200 check and the $600 check we're familiar with, parents receive a payment for more dependents, right? Like more dependents are eligible for a check. The American Rescue Plan extended the definition of dependents. Unlike previous payments, all dependents are included in this bill. So the requirements for children is that they must be under 19. If they're a student, they must be under 24 or considered permanently and totally disabled. They have to have a valid social security number and they can't be claimed by anyone else. And then adult dependents are also included in this round of checks. And so long as you pay for, I think, half of their means to depend on you, they must make less than the gross income requirement, which is $4,300. Those adult dependents fall under this American Rescue Plan as well, and they're entitled to payment. So if you have a baby or adopt a child after you receive your stimulus check, you will not be able to claim them as a dependent on your 2021 taxes for the $1,400 tax credit. So many of you have already received the payments. How you receive them is typically how you've received other payments. Unless you've moved, then it's going to be hard for that check to find you, or unless your banking information has changed. Like the last 2 stimulus checks, most everyone or most people that I've spoken to in my microcosm use the direct deposit, and it's almost instant, right? It's almost within the next week you receive that. Checks were expected to go out a week or so longer than direct deposits, so they were looking around March 29th, which wasn't too long ago. And then the cards, the money paid cards, were expected to come around the week of April 5th, if not sooner. So that's kind of the timeline, and that doesn't mean that just because you haven't received it, you're not getting it. Maybe there's some delay, and there's a way to look into that. You can go to the IRS Get My Payment tool. I have the website here. It's really easy. It takes less than 2 minutes to figure out if they've deemed you qualified, or if it's something you're going to have to look into as a rebate recovery credit this time next year for tax season. And this is one of the downsides to this third stimulus check that I wanted to note, because it's unique to it. The $600 check and the $1,200 check were safe from this, but there are some unique situations where it's subject to garnishment. It's not subject to federal and state offsets, for example, if you owe child support or back taxes, but this payment can be collected by private collectors, and this is particularly for people who are getting that money directly put into the bank account. It's not safeguarded. So if the bank account's overdrawn or there's a lien on it by a private collector, this money could be subject to garnishment, and that's unfortunate. It's just the way the bill was passed. And then I will turn it over to Marie Renee. There's a lot on expanded and extended benefits.
Okay, yeah. So in this new package, there was, of course, an extension of benefits for pandemic unemployment assistance, but also for pandemic emergency unemployment compensation. Of course, the federal pandemic unemployment compensation funds have been extended, which is the extra $300 that people get. It doesn't matter which unemployment program you're under, you'll get that extra $300 as long as you're eligible and continue to meet the requirements of any unemployment program that you've qualified for. So again, I know we've mentioned this several times before, but right now we have 3 main unemployment programs, and of course, the 4th program that is attached to every program, which is the $300. State unemployment insurance is basically your program that if you have enough wages and you're available and able to work, then you will qualify for this program automatically. Even if you have a COVID-19 reason, if you were, left your job on a good note, you are available and able to work, it was just a simple layoff due to COVID-19, you'd probably be switched to state unemployment insurance if you have enough wages to qualify for it. There's nothing wrong with that program. It's just how the Department of Labor has regulated how these new CARES Act statutes need to be implemented across the agency. The state unemployment insurance program typically lasts for 26 weeks. In Louisiana, it is 26 weeks. There might be some differences in other states if you're watching from another area. Then after the 26 weeks, you can qualify for an emergency extended benefit program, which is what you see here called Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. And that program originally was for only 11 weeks, then it extended for another 13 weeks first, and then it extended for another 11 weeks. And now it's been extended again. So it will last until September 4th of 2021. I know some of the legislative bills say September 6th, but the way it works is that whatever day our weeks end in terms of unemployment calendars, that's the day that the benefits will be cut off. So in some states it's Sunday, so it would be September 5th. But in Louisiana, our week endings are basically on Saturday, so September 4th would be the cutoff for PEUC. Again, it's well, I'll go further into it later on in the next couple of slides, but pandemic unemployment assistance is your one where you have a COVID reason and you're not available and able to work. Other issues might apply as well as if you are a self-employed worker. So the next slide, like I said, state unemployment insurance, you do have to be available and able to work. So if you have a situation where you're not able due to, being a high risk individual or not at school due to COVID-19 closures, then you would probably want to be switched to pandemic unemployment assistance because state unemployment insurance is very strict. And depending on what state you're in, some laws are stricter than others. Louisiana has a very strict suitability and substantial change in the workplace law. So it's harder to prove, especially with COVID-19, that your workplace might be unsafe. Some situations differ depending on the facts surrounding your case. But it's meant to provide temporary financial assistance to workers. And usually you need to not have a fault of your own for losing your job. So that's where it comes into play. If you left your job without any misconduct issue, it's just a layoff because the business, closed due to COVID-19, then you'd probably get switched to this program. However, if there is a misconduct issue, or you quit your job without any kind of substantial reason for doing so, disqualifications would apply for state unemployment insurance. Some independent contractors do qualify for state unemployment insurance. So this is where it kind of gets a little tricky. Usually in the past, we had a lot of people who were gig workers right before the pandemic. But in 2019, they were working for a big corporation where they were getting a W-2, at the end of the year. So they had enough earnings to qualify for state unemployment insurance. So just because you're a gig worker or you recently switched to being a gig worker and it's, your work has been affected due to COVID, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be under PUA. It might be a situation where you're under state unemployment insurance. And then pandemic unemployment assistance, again, it was pretty much created to help people who don't qualify for state unemployment insurance. Louisiana has a lot of people that, are independent contractors or work, gig workers, do independent work on their own. And so PUA really came into play to help these people who just don't have any W-2 earnings whatsoever. So if you had a 1099s, usually you would be under pandemic unemployment assistance as long as you meet one of the COVID-19 recognized reasons. There's several reasons now, and some that have been implemented throughout the Department of Labor with the new Biden administration. But basically for PUA, you do have to meet one of the related reasons to COVID-19, and you also have to be job attached. Unfortunately, when the Continued Assistance Act passed earlier after December 26th, PUA did require for job attachment proof. So you don't necessarily have to prove your COVID-19 reason, but you do have to prove that you worked prior to this COVID-19 reason that affected your work. So it's kind of those weird two-way trick scenarios, because you think you have to prove that you were sick or you have to prove that business slowed down. It's not really that. You just have to prove that you were working. Usually your tax returns, if you filed them, in 2019 or in 2020, and there's proof that you were working, that will definitely help with proving job attachment. Other scenarios where you might not have filed taxes, but you did a lot of work for a family or for several companies independently. A lot of times we're able to help fix these disqualifications of job attachment if you have some sort of proof from your employer or person you worked with saying, hey, this person, we used to contract them, but due to COVID, we just don't have enough business for them. Something simple like that usually can help prove job attachment as well. So it's always good to keep records of anything that you have, even if you're in a good situation right now where you're still working. Just kind of keep records of those checks that you're getting, or if it's cash apps or anything like that. Keeping a record is really important, especially during this time that we're still going through this pandemic. But again, PUA has been extended as well to September 4th of 2021. Of course, the legislation says September 6th, but that's just how, it was implemented. But in Louisiana, it does end on September 4th. And again, the minimum that you can get with PUA is $107. The maximum is $247. And there is that unique situation that some people did claim earlier in the pandemic. So you might have claimed since February of 2020. So you might exhaust your benefits before September 4th of 2021. Unless Congress says that PUA can be extended for more than 79 weeks, 79 weeks is all that you get. So yes, the program is in effect till September 4th, but you only get 79 weeks of PUA benefits. So that's also the same scenario with PEUC. Instead of 79, it's 53 weeks. But again, if you exhausted them, there's not much else that we can do unless Congress says we can implement more weeks. And then after that, yes, so COVID-19 reasons, there's a lot of reasons. And like I said, these are the ones that are written into the statute, but some other facts might apply depending on, our own Secretary of the Department of Labor in Louisiana, and also the National, Department of Labor, if they accept some other interpretation of what PUA can apply to, then it might be recognized. So it's always good to just kind of, go throughout this process and double check if you can. With an attorney or an agent at the Louisiana Workforce Commission. But usually, if you're diagnosed with COVID, if you are caring for someone who's sick with COVID-19 in the household, if your child is forced to stay in, at home to do virtual learning, other scenarios might apply. Recently, the Department of Labor did implement that if you have a fear of working in your environment, so let's say your job isn't really implementing the mask mandate, or they're not using safe materials to clean highly touched surfaces, like they're just plain out using bleach and it's not safe for you to use or smell due to other health underlying conditions, then you might qualify for pandemic unemployment assistance. It can get a little tricky with this new guideline because usually we have a lot of people who, they're just kind of scared of COVID-19. And technically this new guideline does allow for those scenarios to happen, but it can't just be you're scared of COVID-19. There has to be a reason in the workplace for you to be scared of COVID-19. So I know that's kind of like, confusing, but usually I would say if your job isn't, implementing safety rules, or if you're a high risk individual, and you work in a grocery store and there's so many people coming in and some people aren't wearing their mask, even if the store is mandating that kind of procedure, you might qualify for pandemic unemployment assistance. But again, like I said, you don't necessarily have to provide proof of your COVID-19 reason because PUA still remains self-certified. But if you have any record of such conditions or, recommendations from your doctor, it's always good to kind of keep a record of that, just to give it to the agency, just because a lot of times agents, when they call in and check on your status of why you left your job or why you're not working, they a lot of the agents are hired by independent companies, so they're not actual agents with the Department of Labor in Louisiana. So they might not understand what you're telling them. And so keeping records of any of your, if your situation is important to kind of help clarify any miscommunication between you and an agent. Like I said, sometimes they just ask the wrong question, which leads to a wrong answer. And, it's not their fault in some sense because they're just overwhelmed. And so they're hiring all these people, but it's just a way to protect yourself against any disqualifications or overpayments. Another COVID-19 reason that is very important is that if you're a temporary worker or independent contractor that worked with a school setting, this would be like a substitute teacher or a cafeteria worker. Usually these people are not guaranteed work or aren't guaranteed a return date. So a lot of times in 2020, it was implied that there were seasonal due to that technicality, a lot of people were qualified for benefits, but were not qualified for the summer months. Now, I don't know how Louisiana is going to back pay individuals or how they're going to review these cases, but now it's implied that you can continue receiving pandemic unemployment assistance funds for those months that you technically would not be working because the school session is closed. So like I said, we don't have much information on that, but it's something to keep in mind that the Department of Labor has recognized as a COVID-19 reason. Another situation, which is pretty minor, it was always allowed for you to get pandemic unemployment assistance, which this was the, if your work was reduced or you had a few days to work due to COVID-19 shortages in your job. For some reason, back in December 27th up to the end of January, there was a weird guideline that said you could not qualify for pandemic unemployment assistance because technically you're still working. That rule has been taken out. I don't know why that happened. It was just during the Trump administration, but now the Biden administration has clarified that that's no longer the case. So if you are, if your work has reduced your hours or the days that you're able to work due to COVID-19, you can qualify for pandemic unemployment assistance. Again, there might be other facts to your case that might not put you under this program. And the other thing you need to consider is that everyone has a different weekly benefit amount. So if you are making more than your weekly benefit amount, you'll automatically be disqualified for excessive earnings, not because you're not eligible, but just because you are making too much money. Unfortunately, Louisiana is one of the lowest, unemployment weekly benefit amount rates throughout the country. So it's pretty easy to make more than your weekly benefit amount. But if you are making lower than that, I suggest to file your weekly certification. And even if 1 week changes where, let's say this week you're working 2 hours, but next week things pick up because it's Easter or some kind of holiday, you want to continue doing your weekly certifications, because the week afterwards, if the business is still slow and is not guaranteeing you, full-time work, you can still get your benefits next week if you only work 1 hour the following week. So it's always good to just keep them up to date, because once you stop doing a weekly certification, it will lock you out of the system and make you refile and do the whole process. So you don't want to do that unless you exhaust your benefits. But yeah, those are some of the new recognized rules. And then, like I said, job attachment is important, providing proof of that. If you don't have proof, it's kind of hard for, even us as attorneys to argue that you're eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance. Unfortunately, this rule has made it harder and has led to a lot of disqualifications, even though people have been receiving benefits for several months. So I know Constance will be doing another, presentation on overpayments and how to appeal such disqualifications. But, if you do get a disqualification for this particular issue that you didn't provide job attachment proof, if you have it, provide it as soon as you can, attach it to your appeal. But if you don't have it, you might be eligible for a waiver, a consideration of waiver form. So usually these forms are attached to your appeal, your appeals, or your appeal notices or your disqualification notices. There are situations where it's not attached or you don't get it. So try to reach out to the agency, because they can give you a general form where you can write it out and, provide proof of your expenses and how your situation is, very hard at this time due to COVID. So just ask for it. It's something that it's not, it doesn't hurt trying to filling it out, and also it doesn't hurt attaching proof of your situation, because you might still be disqualified, but you might be eligible for a waiver where you don't have to pay back, any money, or maybe less money than what you originally would owe. And then the other thing is, if you were already unemployed due to COVID-19, if you were already unemployed for a very long time, for some reason you wanted to look for work in January, February, March of 2020, being unemployed alone is not a COVID-19 reason for pandemic unemployment assistance. You have to have had job attachment. So that's where the proof of job attachment comes in, because it's just how the Department of Labor wants this law to be interpreted. We've tried arguing with the agency many times that the statute only says to, you only need to be unemployed, but it's, we haven't won a case like that. And unless something changes in the future, we really cannot, I don't want to encourage you to, file for pandemic unemployment assistance, because it just isn't a winnable case right now. So, those people who have been unemployed for a very long time, unfortunately, this program is not for you. It's hard, but it just isn't, due to how it's been interpreted. And then also, for the additional job attachment proof, agencies are supposed to be giving 90 days for those who've already received benefits in 2020. So by this time, everyone is practically in this boat where you have to provide job attachment proof. Now, if you are one of those people that are just filing for pandemic unemployment assistance, you do have to, you have 21 days to provide job attachment. So this 90-day rule, is really more for those who've already been filing since 2020. But the 21-day rule is for those who are filing just now in 2021. So they will qualify you for benefits. I've had this conversation with agents a lot that, if you apply and you have a COVID-19 reason, they might automatically reinstate benefits for you. However, they do need the job attachment proof. So if you don't provide it within 21 days of you filing your first application for benefits, you might get disqualified. I don't know if that leads to an overpayment, but I do know it leads to a disqualification moving forward. So you'll be stuck in that loop. So if you have the job attachment proof already with you, then provide it to the agency as soon as you can. The agency will usually have an agent require this proof. Another way to do it is when you file, it usually gives you an opportunity to provide any kind of documents related to the last employment that you worked. And another way to do it is just uploading it to your documents management page in your hire section. So if you are in that situation where you just don't know where to do it, just do it and upload it in your documents management page, because any agent has access to looking over that section of your account. So if they see it, and even if it's like a short letter from a construction company owner that they just can't keep you on board because of COVID-19, just ask them, can you please write like a short statement, make sure that the letter has a signature from the your employer supervisor. Another thing is make sure that the letter or any kind of proof that you're attaching has a number to the employer so that the agency can contact and verify them. Sometimes the agency won't contact them, but most of the time they will. So I just like to keep that in hand. Now, if you don't have that kind of work, you let's say you're a self-employed worker, you do a lot of independent work for different families or different groups, then your tax return will be another good way to do it. If you don't have a tax return, maybe talk to someone that you've provided services for and kind of give them a chance to attest to the agency that that you did provide work for them, but they just can't hire you because of COVID. Something like that just kind of helps. So again, 21 days moving forward. But like I said, just because you got your benefits today and you filed yesterday, get that work in because they're going to need it.
Yeah, and Marie, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've had a lot of employers for people that are attempting to receive PUA be hesitant to write that letter. Mm-hmm. And I've even called those employers and it's like, this will not affect you. This will just help the person get benefits. Because say I had a lady that was cleaning Airbnbs, right? And she was only used on contract. And all she had was these Cash App payments from John Doe, and she was turning those into the agency, but that wasn't sufficient. But with a letter from John Doe that says, hey, there's no Airbnbs to clean, I'm not employing her because everything shut down due to COVID, with his name and that number attached to the Cash App payments, requalified her. And it was just that simple of uploading all that for the hearing. But sometimes employers are hesitant because they think it's going to affect them or be on the hook for something. So if you're a PUA recipient or if you're a PUA, if you're attempting to file for it, your employers will not be affected. They're just merely helping you help yourself. So.
And the agency loves employers. They don't really like claimants. So if anything, their employers are more protected than employees. So I, would encourage, you to kind of have, a conversation ahead of time with your, if you're being told you're going to get let go or there's no more work, I just kind of have that conversation with your employer that, it's the agency definitely favors them more. So, yeah. And so I know I already talked a little bit about PEUC, which is the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program, which is literally just an extended benefit program of your state unemployment insurance benefits. So if you are under PUA and your PUA reasons kind of still continue on, you don't have to worry about pandemic emergency unemployment compensation. There are very few scenarios where I have people who have had all three programs, and it's usually because it's a systemic issue. So if you do hear someone who says, I had them all, don't think that's going to apply to you. Every case is very different. But if you are a state unemployment insurance claimant and you've already exhausted by filing for 26 weeks of benefits and you've received 26 weeks of benefits, then you're going to have to refile. The system's going to force you to do it. I've tried, there's some scenarios where the agency will help, but you have to do this on your own 99% of the time. So you have to refile. It's tedious. You got to do the whole process again, but it will help you continue on with your benefits. So how it works is once you exhaust, you get your 26th payment of benefits, you're going to go ahead and refile that following Sunday. So let's say today you got your last payment on your 26th week. You will move on and refile a whole new brand application on Sunday, and you will basically try to tell the agency is going to probably give you a disqualification letter saying you're ineligible for state unemployment insurance. That's normal. It does happen, but it should reinstate you to PEUC, which is the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program. Like I said, it's 53 weeks now, but the program does end September 4th. Your weekly benefit amount should remain the same, should not change at all. That is written in the statute. So if you do see something crazy where you were getting the $247 and now they're trying to lower it to $180, please reach out to the agency, because sometimes it's just their system is old and it's harder for them to kind of update some things. So there are scenarios where a person might have a change, but no, you should continue on with the same weekly benefit amount. And like I said, it's really just an extended benefit program, but it is under the CARES Act. So it's called Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. And then FPUC is the extra, well, it used to be the extra $600. Now it's the extra $300. And this is available up to September 4th of 2021. So if you are getting benefits all throughout the time, no matter what program you're under, you don't have, it doesn't have to be COVID-19 related, you will get this $300 additionally to your weekly benefit amount. I get this question a lot to this day about people saying, I never got my $300 back in November of 2020 and December 2020. Unfortunately, this program was implemented after December 26th. It cannot be retroactively applied. We've had this question several times. It can only be applied moving forward. So if you are seeing that you're missing your $300, you know, for this week, then that's something that we may be able to assist with. But before that, there's nothing that we can do. It might be increased, we never know, but as of now, it's just $300. I do get the question that, you know, I thought it was $400. That was a conversation, you know, that the House of Representatives wanted to force, you know, when they first wrote the draft, but senators did not like that. So we are stuck with the $300. So yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people are first-time tax filers with unemployment benefits. So we receive a lot of questions, and we kind of work in tandem between our tax unit and our unemployment services unit and benefits unit about reporting your unemployment benefits on your tax return. Unfortunately, you do have to pay taxes on, because it is seen as an income on benefits. But with the new act that we've been discussing today, the first $10,200 of it isn't taxable. So that's good when you're filing, and that's very helpful. So common questions we get all the time: do I need to pay taxes? Yes. They are considered wages. So if you see your earned income credit impacted by this, that's why. And if you didn't have the taxes pulled out, you will see those come at the end of the year. And that's just how you decided to file, right? If you wanted your weekly state taxes pulled out, you had that option. If you didn't, you know, then you're going to pay it on the back end, right? But the first $10,200 of unemployment benefits you received are not taxable income to the IRS. So that's a very helpful thing that's acted. Do you get a special tax form for unemployment benefits? The answer is yes. It's a 1099-G. And the easiest place to find it is on your Hire account. You can access it there. You can print it from there. And if you received unemployment benefits in 2020 and you're filing for 2020 this year, it does need to be reported. It does need to be added. So where do I find my 1099-G in your Hire portal? You're going to log in. You'll navigate the options location on the left end of your screen, that little hamburger option. You will then need to click Subtitle Services for Individuals, then click Subtitle Unemployment Services, and then you'll see several options. And Form 1099-G is where you need to be. You'll be brought to a new page, and the subtitle will be View. And then that's where you can make a printable PDF, right? And you can even save it to your computer as a copy, or you can print it from there. And then, I'm sorry, the mailman's here. What amount do I need to report for my 1099-G form? Individuals who are required to file a tax form must report the total shown in box 1 on the 1090 form as income. However, the first $10,200 of unemployment benefits you received are not taxable to the IRS and do not need to be reported if you have not opted in to have your taxes withdrawn from your weekly benefit payments. But a lot of tax services will navigate you through this, a lot of online services. And I meant to make a slide, I'll pull it up later. There is the VITA service for Southeast Louisiana through United Way. It's a free tax service for those that are economically eligible, and they'll help you through this process, especially for those of us that are concerned that have mixed unemployment and mixed income. And then Marie herself has written some really helpful blogs here. And if you go to sls.org and under our blog section, you can look those up. And then that is directly to the one that's particular to this issue. And it will help. It can go further, Marie.
Yeah, no, I did want to point out there, so with the 1099G form, a lot of times there's 1099Gs that have wrong information.
That's true.
Unfortunately, the agency, I've tried arguing several times with them that, you know, to reissue new ones for our clients, but they've taken a stance that they're not going to reissue new 1099Gs. What they have advised is if you are one of those people that has like a wrong amount for whatever reason, try to kind of gather all your claim summary information that you have in your hire portal. So if you have a hire portal, it's super important to just go to your claim summary because it should list all your weeks. Now, if you were one of those people that, you know, that you had to refile for an extended benefit program, you might not see everything that you filed for, but try to keep a record. Like, you know, if your weekly benefit amount was $107, filed for 26 weeks, like multiply that based on how, you know, the 26-week amount, and try to average, like, what did I get? Did I get $600, you know, for a month, you know, in July? I didn't file till July. So you want to kind of calculate as much as you can and kind of attach information there. The agency has provided a public announcement, which you can find on the LA Works Hire website. And I also have a link to in the blog that Constance has provided a link for you. So it has a link to the public announcement and all the information about how to kind of, when you're filing for your taxes, you don't want to file the amount that's written in the 1099G if it's completely wrong. So you want to just kind of tell your tax preparer, like, this, I only received $10,000. I didn't receive $100,000. So you know, it kind of provide all that proof. That way, when the IRS audits it, you know, you have it in case. Usually, it's the IRS has also provided information that that's kind of how they want you to do it. They don't want you to report what the wrong amount. So don't do that. And if you have, you know, talk to your tax preparer or the VITA services people, you know, they will have more information on how to amend your tax return. And then the other question that I get a lot is if you had an overpayment for whatever reason, and so you had to pay back benefits, or, you know, those benefits were, you know, they were waived. And so people are like, well, technically I didn't receive anything because I was overpaid, and then, you know, now I have to pay it back. You still have to report the amount that you received from the agency in some sense, because they kind of gave you that money. So I would talk to your tax preparer about that information more, because there are some technicalities of what you can report and when you don't have to report. So the 1099G is kind of meant to just help in some sense, you know, navigate how much you received, but there are those crazy scenarios that, you know, the amount in there is not correct.
So we have a couple common tax questions, and then I have your pre-submitted questions, and then I see some questions up in the chat that me and Marie will just share. So what if I filed taxes for the first time in 2020? Before stimulus checks can be issued, the IRS must receive and process your 2020 tax return. So if you're a first-time filer, they don't have a way to get that stimulus money to you yet, right? They need all your information, and they need the correct route, whether it be a check, a debit card, or a direct deposit, to get that money to you. And just know that the IRS is extremely backlogged. So if you're a first-time filer, I encourage you to file as quickly as possible, even though the deadline's been extended. But know that if you haven't received payment yet, it's because they're backlogged. It's not necessarily because you're not getting a payment. And then that I would refer you back to the IRS Get My Payment tool to go from there, right? And Marie, do you want to take this one or you want me to take it?
Yeah, what if I still haven't gotten the first or second stimulus check? So I know this experience because I basically didn't get my first stimulus check. So you do need to file your 2020 tax return to claim any stimulus money. And it's really easy when even if you're doing it on your own on like TurboTax or any kind of I'm not trying to advertise any tax agency, but anything that you're using, like an independent one, it does give you a section where you can report which stimulus amount you didn't get. So go, it's pretty simple, and it usually will just automatically approve you if you did it, because they will check. So I'm not encouraging you to lie or anything like that, but if you were one of those people that you did not get your stimulus, just report it. This is referred to as the recovery rebate credit. So it's kind of similar to what Constance was explaining for those who are not getting the 2021 stimulus checks. And like I said, just enter the appropriate information and it will run the math for you, whichever program you use. And the VITA Services, program, they will definitely go over this information with you if needed too. I used to do that kind of volunteer work, and it's a perfect way to kind of navigate these questions as well if you are having problems with it.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, just like I said earlier, the first two stimulus checks weren't subject to garnishment. The third one is for private entities only. But if you are receiving any check as a rebate recovery payment on your tax filing, if you have tax money owed, it will go towards that tax money owed first, and then you will get the difference. So it's not necessarily seen as a garnishment in the eyes of the IRS at this point, but just be prepared for that. Because I know I've been a bartender myself, and at the end of the year, we often owe quite a lot. So if you're getting a rebate recovery credit, it will be applied to taxes due. So we had a few pre-submitted questions. Some of them are a little outside of Marie and I's practice area. So I have some referral links that I found very useful when I was trying to find the best way to answer those questions. So someone asked where their money goes when they've worked for 25 years and never drew on it. I'm making an assumption here, but correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. That's a 401k. And I have a useful link here, and there's basically 4 things you can do with it. But most people roll it over into a Roth IRA or keep it with their old employer, but it's wholly up to you. And if you search the link that I've provided, it shows you all the pros and cons of what you can do with 401ks, retirement benefits, and how that works for you. And then someone asked how soon until we're back to work, and that really depends. That depends on your work area. I know with the shots being distributed more readily and then the mandates being lifted, more people are being called back to work. But that's a case-by-case scenario. Someone had a question about mortgage payment relief. The Louisiana Housing website has some great information on that. I provided the link there if you want to look there. And then, do I need to file taxes in order to get the money? And I think Marie and I already kind of touched on that, on it's a case-by-case basis and how you get it right, first-time filers and things like that. But for those of you that haven't filed yet this year, the money's just going to come to you based off the 2019 filings, so you should still get your tax payment. There's some couple questions in the chat. I can read off them. Let's see. I'll put up my next slide right now. So if anyone wants to take our Southeast Louisiana Legal Services firm information down and our COVID hotline number, you're welcome to use that. And then, as I referenced earlier, quick legal answers. If you just have a quick answer that you think of later we can't answer for you today, the Bar Association has a great free legal answers website. I want to encourage that. But let's see, in the chat, the first question was, I filed a new unemployment claim for continuing benefits under the new plan, and it appears to have been processed, but the first 3 weeks have been disqualified weeks. What does this mean? And can one receive the federal $300 amount without the state amount? Also, I received a letter saying that I was ineligible for business benefits based on my income amount, which hasn't changed during certain dates, but read on the LWC website that we should disregard it. Is this the case? I believe Marie spoke to that earlier.
So you can't get the $300 if you're disqualified for any week of benefits, but I'm not really sure why the first 3 weeks have been disqualified. So that's kind of like a situation where we would have to go in and review your claim. So I would suggest, if you're eligible for our services at Southeast Louisiana Legal Services, to apply. If you're outside of our service area, there is Acadiana Legal Services, and usually I kind of like use the rule, like if you're in the northeastern part of Louisiana, then call them, not us, because we won't be able to help. Like your weekly benefit amount should not change if you're filing for PEUC, which is what I'm assuming continuing benefits means. It should remain the same base period. The only scenario that I have seen recently is that a lot of people's benefit years have ended technically, because it's already been 1 year since COVID first started. So it probably did force you to refile. However, the statutes and the Department of Labor guidelines have said your weekly benefit amount should remain the same if you have not worked at all for 2020 or worked less than you did in 2019, which was pretty much everyone's base period was like overlapping with 2018, 2019. So I would check with the agency. If you do think you're eligible for SLS, please contact us so that we can see what we can do. But yeah, the $300 amount, if you're disqualified and that determination is correct, you can't get that money.
And if you have a disqualification with an appeal deadline, go ahead and file that appeal on your hire account so you preserve your rights in case this isn't a clerical issue that can be easily fixed and it's something you have to go the long route for.
Yeah, also check your messages, even if you didn't get an email or postal mail about it. Just check your hire messages, because sometimes there's an agent who requested information. You might have supplied it later after, and that could be why you were disqualified for certain weeks. So just check your hire messages, because there you will find a lot of notices that the agents will send out to you.
Yeah. Second question, if you realized after the fact that you received severance and or leftover vacation pay from your former employer, didn't initially report it, then subsequently reported it, does LWC disqualify the amount you received and deduct it from your unemployment benefits, then start paying again after that amount is deducted?
Okay, so if you got this, so this is a hard question because it depends on when you received your severance payment or leftover vacation pay. It is considered wages for the Louisiana Workforce Commission. So if this is something that you received when you first got laid off, then yes, you had to report it initially, and failure to report it does lead to an overpayment if you received benefits for those weeks that you would have gotten the severance payment for. Because what they do with the severance payment is they divide it up based on how much you would earn on average in your workplace. And then they would, for whatever number of weeks that would be, those are the weeks that you wouldn't qualify for benefits. So you do have to report it. Now, if it's something that you didn't get, let's say I have a client who was laid off initially due to COVID-19, but she wasn't terminated from her position until the summer of 2020. And then she got, a notice saying, we can't hire you back. We're closing the business for good. Gets a severance payment and vacation payment. Now, that severance payment can be applied for the weeks moving forward from that notice. So, you would report it based on those weeks that you would now have this payment. But yes, you have to report it. If you didn't report it, it could lead to an overpayment. You might be good for right now, but the agency is allowed to backtrack and review everything. And we have this situation right now. Extra time, so employers are just now getting back to the agency, and so you might be in that situation where you're good now, but maybe next month you might get a letter saying you were overpaid. Now, that doesn't mean you're disqualified. It just means that you have an overpayment. So what might happen is that they might just take it out from your future weekly benefit amounts. So like if you still have 10 weeks to go, they might just use the remainder 10 weeks to pay back the overpayment, because they can garnish your weekly benefit amount. What they can't garnish is 50% of the $300 that the federal government is giving everyone. So you might get like 150 versus, your full 300 and your weekly benefit amount. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's better than nothing, but it kind of is in, that situation. But yeah, it's a weird scenario, because you won't be disqualified moving forward. You just will be in charge of this overpayment. Now, I don't want to say file a waiver for consideration form, because in this scenario, it's kind of considered fault based on the agency's eyes for failure to report, since they do have it written in all of their benefits rights booklets, and they kind of encourage it. That's an implied rule that you're supposed to read it, even though it's very long. So, I'm not saying your waiver is going to get approved, but if you do think that, it might get approved for whatever reason, and everybody's situation is unique, go ahead and file the waiver form and appeal the overpayment. That way, the garnishments won't start till later. And it's something that maybe you could pay back later when, you have a job or things are better economically. So just appeal it. Like I said, it's not really an automatic disqualification, but it is an overpayment. So appeal it. Appeal it and fill out the waiver form. But if you don't appeal it, they can garnish it from a weekly benefit amount. So that's kind of the answer for that one. Yeah.
And I think that's all the questions we have on the Q&A.
I have a question for y'all. So a couple days ago, we saw this news headline, right? That said that the state sent $405 million in unemployment to people that were not eligible to receive it. That's kind of like an alarming headline. And for anybody that is receiving it, how do you know you're like safe, or should you be expecting a notification in your hire? I guess some of these are overpayments, Marie, like you've been mentioning. That probably is a part of the $405 million. What are some of the other cases that this would apply to?
A lot of people are on the wrong benefit program, and then it triggers overpayments and disqualifications. And the problem with the agency right now is I know they're backlogged and I wouldn't want their job, but they're doing a poor job of noticing or bringing notice to claimants. So by snail mail or by email, the selected email the clients choose to respond on. I've had clients that just received a disqualification and they're like, oh, well, I can't get benefits anymore. I'm going back to work. I'll just drop this. I don't need to appeal it. But then in their hire account, in their inbox, there's 3 overpayments that they're responsible for. And then you only have 15 days to appeal a disqualification or overpayment, and they miss that deadline. And then they're on the hook for all this money, and they very well may have had an appealable claim. So it's get into your hire inbox every day is what I tell my clients. You'll see on your benefits, your unemployment benefit assessment or your unemployment benefit, it's in the left-hand column. Marie might know what I'm talking about. You'll see if you're under a control audit, and you may receive calls from LWC, and that's a tip in that they're auditing your account. Marie, do you have anything on that?
I just think just keep checking your hire account, like Constance said, but sometimes these things are like, I don't want that public announcement to alarm everyone, because sometimes people are disqualified and it's just for a simple reason, like, failure to report some information. So like I said, just check your hire account, even if you're not claiming benefits. I know a lot of people, are back at work, and so they're like, I don't need to check it anymore, but just check it at least once a week until like a year later. And then like, just see if there's any information that they might be requesting. Because the problem with the agency is that they're trying to comply with the Department of Labor, and they're trying to look good before them, because the Department of Labor is basically their dad. And, so they're trying to look good and avoid any charges on, against them. So unfortunately, they're just now getting to review a lot of claims that were, filed back in March. So check it, because a lot of times I see situations where it's just the person whose employer is now getting a call, and this employee is back at work, for several months, and the employer doesn't know what they're talking about or is too busy. And so they might say something wrong, like the wrong person asking the wrong question. So just check it, and, kind of, if you have a good relationship with your employer, kind of like tell them, especially if they knew that you were filing for benefits and you were temporarily laid off, because we see that coming into our office so many times. Just kind of tell them, hey, they are auditing, maybe this is something we can work out among us, that way your employers kind of gets a heads up, because sometimes even employers get confused with the separation notice forms, and they don't even know. The questions are so vague that it leads to you answering the wrong answer. So just keep checking your hire account, keep checking your emails, check your spam folders. Sometimes, those notices go to your spam. So check it just in case you get something in the mail. And if you change your address, please update that on your hire account, even if you aren't filing for taxes, not taxes, unemployment benefits, update your contact information, because sometimes you might get a notice later on through the mail. And so that's another good way to protect yourself from this kind of craziness that we're living through.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Constance. Did you want to say something, Constance? Do you want to plug it?
Oh, I just added in the chat VITA Tax Services contact for anyone that was interested in VITA's tax services. I know they extended their timeline for being able to help people that are eligible for services. So I put it's in the chat.
And those services are offered at our home office on Canal Street. So there's a box out front, and you just prepare your taxes and drop them in this secure box, and then they will call you for more information. There are other VITA sites as well, and all of those are listed on the website that Constance sent. I also just want to quickly mention how to access services through counseling services through the through Loyola's counseling center and education center. You can call 504-864-7858, or you can email them. You can find all of these resources and how to access the Louisiana Legal Services as well at United Way SELA.org/hospitality cares resources. Again, United Way SELA.org/hospitality cares resources. And we have all of our previous Know Your Rights webinars on that site as well. We will be adding today's as soon as possible. And we also encourage you to join us on May 13th for our May Know Your Rights webinar. Thank you, Constance, and thank you, Marie, for joining us. And thank you so much, Marie, for all of your help throughout this pandemic. I don't know anybody that knows unemployment benefits as well as you do, and congratulations on your new position. We're so happy for you, but we will truly miss you.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll still partnering with you all in some way.
I'll drag her in whenever I can.
Have it on recording, Constance, just so you know. No, just kidding. Have it on record. But no, Marie, seriously, thank you so much. You really taught me personally so much about this, and I will miss you truly. So thank you.
It's not goodbye. I'll still look for y'all.
Okay, wonderful. Well, have a wonderful day, and I hope y'all have a great rest of the week. Bye, y'all.
Bye.